Hello and welcome to Connections, Coffee, and Confidence with me, Janice. And yes, it really is me. Our house has been hit by some horrible bug, and this is what I'm left sounding like. In the choice between skipping a week and recording and sounding like this, I chose to show up. Now I hope you bear with me. Now, did you hear last week's episode on the reasons for using storytelling as a tool in your business to get you thinking about using stories? Did it make you start to wonder what stories you have to tell? Well, that's what I want to look at this week. So stay right here. Hi, I'm Janice Fogarty, and I'm a communications strategist and consultant. The Connections, Coffee, Confidence podcast is for professional women entrepreneurs who have established themselves and their business, and they're ready to get serious about using the power of communication to surpass their business goals. On this podcast, I discuss everything from leadership to establishing a business vision to the intricacies of creating messaging, publicity, and more. I speak to women who excel in communications in their business, whatever they do, and get an inside look at how they created a thriving livelihood. So top up your mug and welcome to this week's episode. But first, before jumping into storytelling, I'd like to take this quick second to remind you to sign up for my goal-setting CoWorking session. If you listened to any of my October 2021 episodes, they were all around goals and goal setting, why we set goals that we never reach, and how we can change that. Based off of my research around that and the fact that goals are the basis for everything, our activities and our communications, I'm hosting a free session where we can sit together, virtually of course, and work on our goals for next year. I'm trying out a particular format for goal setting, and I plan to run this session again quarterly, but this is your chance to hop in, try it out, give your feedback, and hey, the worst thing that happens is that you get your goals written and a start on your 2022 plan accomplished. Head on to my website for the details and to register. The link is in the show notes. Now, storytelling. In my last episode, I laid out the 4 reasons you would use storytelling in your business marketing and PR. If you haven't listened, it's okay. It's not critical for this episode, but it might provide some context, so give it a whirl after you've finished this one. I intentionally keep these episodes short so you can listen to more than one while you're going about your business. I know you're busy, and time is important. So, let's just cut to the chase here. When I look at storytelling in business, I can identify 7 different types of stories that people use to create relationships and impart their messaging. While I go through these, try and think back in your own experiences to see if you have any stories that fit into these criteria or these boxes and how you can use them in your marketing. And oddly enough, the place I want to start is at the beginning, like the beginning of your business, your beginning. A founder's story is used to create relationships and establish trust. It's often used to demonstrate who you are and the company that you've created or the work that you do. It's often called your why, which I struggle with because sometimes you just start a business because you need to pay your bills or you need to do something before you completely lose your ability to recognize yourself as who you are. But sometimes you really do have a burning passion or a cause, and those can be your founder story. It's really common to see a founder story splashed on websites and magazines. Forbes is full of them, as is Inc.com, because they are interesting. Everyone wants to know how someone started because, well, either they're genuinely curious about that person or in people in general, or because they want to start their own business and they're looking for someone to role model. A founder story can make such an impact on growing an audience and increasing your popularity, so it's a fantastic tool for your public relations strategy if those are your goals. Sara Blakely, founder of Spanx, has a great founder story. She often talks about how she got the idea from her personal experience, wanting to wear something that wouldn't be seen under her white pants and not being able to find anything, therefore leaving her fantastic white pants hanging in her closet. She tells of cutting the feet off of a pair of pantyhose, starting her business with $5,000 in savings while selling fax machines by day. It's a really great story, and it explains why pantyhose has been so awful since time began. The hint is that the makers were people who didn't use the product. She's open about her complete lack of finance and knowledge, but talks about how she bought a book that helped her write most of her own patent, and so much more. It's a story that really demonstrates the ethos of a company. It started from one woman's personal commitment to creating something that would allow women to wear their white pants or whatever else they wanted to wear without having to worry about bulges or lines, just looking their fantastic best. A great founder story can run for a long time, making it a wonderful tool, one that you don't need to reinvent. Another story type you see used is the transformation story. And holy old smokes, do you ever see this story splashed about? It's been used since advertising began. Have you looked at any online service marketers' websites recently? It's the this to that storyline that I know you've seen, read, and heard a million times over. And the reason why you've seen this everywhere is because it's a great way to demonstrate social proof. You know, my friend/client Jenny was this. She did this, and now she's that. And you too can have this transformation if you do this. It's compelling and it can be effective, depending on the type of product that you sell. I think a great way to use a transformation story is when it's really a story, when it gets you invested in the details. This isn't always necessary, of course, but sometimes it is. When you read a story of how someone has transformed, it's more compelling. Noom does a great job of this. The psychology-based weight loss company, their ads feature people, complete with background and pictures of the before and after. It's not just them standing there wearing their old clothes, showing how much smaller they are, but it builds a picture of them as people then and now. You get a feel for the person as a person, and they use diverse people to appeal to as many of their potential audience as possible. Another example of transformation is Lisa Johnson in the UK. Granted, this story could have been featured as a founder story in this episode, but she often uses it as an example of her transformation. In fact, the tagline on her website says, "If I can do it, so can you." Lisa Johnson is a business strategist, and her story of being a single mom to twins who's £30,000 in debt to being a multi-millionaire as a business strategist has really gotten great traction in the media. This is a great story. It's personal. It's identifiable, especially to me as a twin mom. Makes an impact when I think about how much of my energy and brain space went towards having twins. I had a side hustle at the time so I could help pay for diapers and the odd bottle of wine, and I found that difficult enough. So to me, her story is really fantastic. But I think that many women can identify with some part of her story. She's known for it, and for being a passive income specialist, as the two stories are intertwined in her life. It's on her website About section. It's a common conversation piece in her lives and her posts and her media. It's a powerful story and a powerful tool because it demonstrates how she personally transformed. Another type of story that you can use is one that highlights your values. Now, these can be the values of your company or of you personally. Often, they do overlap, but not always. This is when you're known for something in addition to whatever you do to make money. If you support a cause, if you act in a certain way because it aligns with your values, if you believe in something, then you can use those stories to round out your reputation. It's a great way to find and appeal to a different audience than your primary business-related marketing and promotions might do. I talk more about this in episode 61, Simple Ways to Show Good Corporate Citizenship, which I'll link to in the show notes. But another example of this is Jenna Kutcher, a woman who I started following 2 years ago. She started out in marketing, turned into a wedding photographer, and became known for teaching photographers how to market themselves. She continued to evolve and branch out And part of this has been becoming more vocal about miscarriage and women's wellness. She's sensitive to the topics and open about her personal experience. And this has opened her up to so many women who maybe aren't interested in photography, maybe aren't running a business, but are interested in being in a community of women who understand these topics. And if one of these women who has been attracted to Jenna Kutcher by these values she holds decides to start a business, or who has a friend making that decision, you know who she's going to recommend. A quick and easy way to establish trust and familiarity is to have a behind-the-scenes type of story. Please don't tell me that you have never stopped to watch a YouTube video on behind-the-scenes bloopers from a movie set, or read an article on how co-stars got along while the cameras weren't rolling, or gotten stuck on Instagram watching a reel of a bath bomb going off in the water. My friends Lindsay and Carol are really good at this. Lindsay Percy of H&H Naturals often shows exactly that type of reel, and I find them mesmerizing, like I want to hop into that bathtub and smell whatever she has just unleashed in the water. And Carol Foy of Forest and Field Aromatherapy, who I interviewed in episode 48, I'll link to that in the show notes of course, she uses behind-the-scenes type stories to establish her expertise as a qualified aromatherapist. She delves into the science, which might not sound fun, but she makes it fascinating through the visual. Aspirational stories are another way of attracting your audience. This is where you highlight stories, either your own or your clients', or even just a dream scenario, in an effort to draw people towards your product or service. These don't have to be true, because they might not have happened yet. They could be something that you're working towards. Oftentimes, this tact is used in nonprofits, where they're asking for funding or donations, and they're enticing concerned people by showing them what's possible with their donation. In fact, sometimes those exact words are used. With your donation, this child will be able to go to camp, or this village will get a well, or this dog will have 1 week of food. You know this story. But Denise Duffield Thomas also does a great job of this with her Money Bootcamp sales page. She's very simple and straightforward in her marketing. The sales page maps out your dreams and offers the tools to make it happen. Basically, she says make money and change the world. She does a fantastic job of acknowledging the dreams her audience has around making money. All of them, along the whole spectrum, from paying your bills to buying your dream home to traveling the world and everything in between. The stories she tells encourages you to dream, and none of these stories are true yet. They're dreams. And she uses them responsibly, I have to point out. She's not sleazy or gross in using dreams to sell her products. She's incredibly open and honest with her own story. She seems to operate in integrity, and she makes it feel okay to dream. And it feels good. So one thing to keep in mind if you're going to use aspirational stories or dreams in your PR and marketing is make sure you're very clear what you're trying to accomplish and exactly how you can accomplish it. Don't be sleazy with this type of story. Now, I know you won't, but it's still important to say. The last type of story I want to highlight today is a disrupt or pattern interrupt. And I feel like this story takes a bit of confidence to implement because so many of us are conditioned to go with the flow, to fit in and not stand out. But this type of story is about going against the usual. It's almost about shocking someone's system to help them pay attention. Tarzan K is great at this. She's an email marketer, and I love her because she's an explorer and a disruptor. She's open and forthright about her story of why she is re-examining how she operates her marketing business, the language she uses, the tactics she uses to sell her products and those of her clients. She calls out certain practices and owns up to her own usage of them. And who does that? Who points out their mistakes and says, this is not the way to do things? in language that is plain and simple. Tarzan does. To call yourself or your peers out can be incredibly difficult. And she's also very open about the kind of blowback she receives, the angry responses and the unsubscribes she gets as a result. So when I say brave, yeah, brave. But she also does this in the way she sells things, in the stories that she uses. She disrupts her email flow with a story that you aren't expecting, just to keep you awake and interested in opening more of her emails. And I love that as a tactic. Sometimes there might be things that you don't like about your industry. You don't do because it doesn't sit well. It doesn't align with your ethics. Lots of women are starting to call out the bro marketing world. The men who stand in front of their plane or their multi-million-dollar mansion and tell you that you need to buy their product. Follow their method, or you'll never amount to anything. These women are against using countdown timers unless they actually mean something, or limited time offers that are not limited at all. And, this can be uncomfortable. I don't use those methods, and it takes a leap of faith because for a long time, that's all I saw being used in online marketing. But it's exactly that feeling of inadequacy, of doubt, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I don't want to be responsible for someone else feeling like that, so I won't use those tactics. But people will question your methods because they aren't what they're used to seeing, and it takes confidence to go against what you don't like but are surrounded by. This may not be a story type that's right for you, or maybe it's just not for you just yet. But it's one to keep in mind because it can be so attractive and emotive, and those are powerful tools for growth. So these are the types of stories I commonly see. The founder, the transformation, the values, behind the scenes, aspirational, and disruptor or interrupter. If you take some time and look around, I know you'll see these stories in use all over the place, and maybe even some more that I didn't think of. What appeals to you as a consumer and as a businesswoman? What stories are you drawn to? What stories of your own do you have? And if you're interested in using those stories in a strategic way, I invite you to check out my Create Your Social Media Content Strategy Masterclass. It'll help you use those stories by transforming them into social media posts that can help you reach your goals using the strategy that I use for my own clients and their success. And in the meantime, my friend, I'll see you next week. Have a fan-freaking-tastic rest of your day.
Hi, I'm Janice Fogarty, and I'm a communications strategist and consultant. The Connections Coffee Confidence Podcast is for professional women entrepreneurs who have established themselves and their business, and they're ready to get serious about using the power of communication to surpass their business goals. On this podcast, I discuss everything from leadership to establishing a business vision to the intricacies of creating messaging, publicity, and more. I speak to women who excel in communications in their business, whatever they do, and get an inside look at how they created a thriving livelihood. So top up your mug and welcome to this week's episode.